too good, I think.
Is the older one figured out like the baby's not going away? It's like this is
Yeah, she loves that, but she is
It was tough for him. Said that's one of his favorites.
in the morning. Mommy, you have him like we need to get the bottle. Yeah, honey, I got that. Thanks.
Are we ready? Everybody? Okay.
We're good. Yeah.
Okay, let's get started then. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Adjustment meeting of January 23rd, 2019. Let's be sure and silence our cell phones and other technologies, if you would. And let's begin with our quasi-judicial announcement, swearing in the speakers from our legal counsel, please.
Let our call to order.
Do we need a roll call?
Oh, I'm sorry. Roll call, please, Kim.
Okay. Chairman Elliott,
Here.
Mr. Rabowski,
Here.
Mr. Burris,
Yeah.
Mr. Eisner,
Here.
Ms. Turner,
Present.
Mr. Glenzer,
Okay.
Ms. Rich.
All right, thank you. Now that I'm reading the agenda, I see it says roll call. All right. I'm learning after 45 years of this job. All right, now our quasi-judicial announcement from the City Attorney's Office, please.
This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Board of Adjustment acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. Are there any members of the board wishing to disclose any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest this evening?
Can you get on the microphone, John?
I'm not voting tonight, so do I still need to?
If you are not voting, no, you do not have to disclose anything.
Okay, on item number 6, I got a phone call from the applicant about a month ago. He just explained to me what he was doing. I didn't say anything other than that I'd have to disclose this communication, but that's about it. It lasted about 1 minute phone call.
Okay. Anyone else? Is there anyone wishing to, if anyone wishing to speak this evening, if you could please stand and raise your right hand to be sworn in. That includes any applicants or anyone wishing to speak on any application.
If you're going to speak in opposition, please take the oath now.
Yeah, anyone who's,
All the people that are going to speak tonight or think you might speak, let's get it over with at one time if we can. Thank you.
do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So sworn.
Okay, thank you. When you get up to the podium, please state your name and your address. We have, I think, 8 items on the agenda. Is there any discussion from the board about changing any of the proceedings on the agenda?
Move the election to the end.
Yeah, can we move the, there's a request to move the election of the chair and vice chair to the end? Is that okay with everybody? All right, let's do that. If we have the right to change the order of the items on the agenda, so if anybody is under medication or has to catch a flight somewhere or have sick children at home, please, you can raise your hand now or pass a note to either our secretary, Ms. Yothers, or the staff on this side, and we'll see what we can do about moving things around if necessary. But seeing no objections to the order of the agenda, let's proceed with number 4. This is application number 18-150. It's on 1834 Lillian Avenue in Oakley Village. Let's have the staff presentation, please.
This application for a variance to reduce the required setback between a pool and a screen enclosure comes to us from Chuck Arno. Mr. Arnone has asked for this item to be continued to the February meeting. There's an email on the top of this item in your packet. It was a last-minute item that he was not able to come.
Okay. All right, there's a request by the applicant to move this item to the February meeting. Anybody here in the audience on this item? All right, we need a motion then to continue it to a date certain, which is,
I make the motion.
what date is it?
February 27th.
February 27th. Motion by Mr. Boris, is there a second?
Second.
And Mr. Hrabowski, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Turner,
Approve.
Mr. Eisner,
Yes.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Mr. Rabowski,
Yes.
Mr. Elliott.
Yes. Next is application 18-156, waiver of a sidewalk at 1500 Grandview Drive in Ganoy Park, which is off Highland Avenue, east of 19. Staff, please.
Okay, this is a request for a waiver to construct the required sidewalk for a single-family residence. The residence is currently under construction on a corner lot, and that permit includes the installation of a sidewalk along Grandview Drive, the front of the property, and along Forest Heights Drive on the side of the property. The request is being it was submitted for the purpose of retaining some hardwood trees, live oak trees, as the applicant stated, that exist on the right-of-way. Those trees are on Grandview Drive. There are no trees existing along the right-of-way of Forest Heights Drive. There are existing sidewalks in the subdivision, and all of the lots on the rest of this block that this home is being built on are vacant, so there is an opportunity for connecting future sidewalks. What I'll do is there's a special set of criteria for sidewalks, and I'll go through just the highlights of those. Basically, site visit did confirm that the trees do appear to present an impediment to siting a sidewalk or routing a sidewalk through those trees on Grandview Drive. Forest Heights Drive, again, is devoid of trees and could accommodate a sidewalk. The presence of the trees is not something that's been self-created by the applicant. There is sufficient right-of-way to accommodate a sidewalk on both streets, Grandview being 60 feet of right-of-way and Forest Heights being 50 feet. Both streets are either existing or under construction. And again, as far as the technical practicality of routing a sidewalk, the trees on Grandview Drive do appear to present a problem for that. And there are other sidewalks in the neighborhood. This was publicly noticed, and staff has not received any written responses to those notices. And those are the basic findings of facts, as I just relayed. And staff is recommending approval of the request for Grandview Drive only. So that would be approval subject to the following conditions. That would be that the hardwood and palm trees that exist in the right-of-way on Grandview Drive be retained and maintained, and that the applicant would need to submit a plan revision showing just the sidewalk on Forest Heights Drive. Are there any questions?
Questions, Mr. Burris?
Yes, I have a question for staff. Either homes on Grandview Avenue or on Forest Heights have sidewalks?
On Forest Heights, I don't believe there are any sidewalks on that southern portion of Forest Heights Drive.
Okay,
I
what about,
didn't look at the northern portion. There are other sidewalks on Grandview Drive.
okay, are they across the street? The other,
Yeah, across the street and on the same side.
and on the same side?
Yeah.
How are you going to justify if only one or two homes have sidewalks on the same side, and then we'll not continue with the sidewalks on this one?
Not sure I followed that.
The policy of the city has been for years now, not to put sidewalks in places where they're just gonna be there by themselves. But to continue, at least on one side of the road, to have sidewalks. And you say the adjacent homes on Grandview have sidewalks, some of them?
There are other sidewalks on Grandview Drive,
On the same
not
side?
adjacent.
On the same side?
Yeah. Mhm. If you're going to ask me which exactly, I would have to go back and look.
Well, you're given an approval from your end, and what happens to the other homes that have a sidewalk? Wouldn't that be looking like an aberration there?
This neighborhood and subdivision in Grandview Drive, it's not a busy street. It's not a thoroughfare.
Question I
So just to let me complete that thought, the idea that there might be a short absence of a sidewalk in front of this house is not in and of itself, in staff's mind, a reason to grant the waiver for the rest of that side of the street or for the other street. There are at least 3 lots, maybe 2 or 3 lots on this block adjacent to the home that could accommodate a sidewalk. So, in other words, if a person has to walk around the trees or through the trees onto the street for this short distance, that did not carry in staff's mind to a reason to waive sidewalks for the entire street.
So bottom line is that on this side, on Grandview Avenue, there's no sidewalks, right?
I would not say there's no sidewalks at all. I'd have to look. I thought that there were some sidewalks, but I could be wrong.
Have answered, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board of the staff? Is the applicant here in the audience? Mr. Cooper? Please come up. You gotta be on the mic, Mr. Cooper, so you can set them.
Hello? Yes, sir.
All right, please state your case.
My name's Torrey Cooper, 1407 Grandview Drive, Tarpon Springs, Florida.
You're the applicant.
Yes, I
Explain
am
why you want the
represent the
waiver.
applicant, which is Diane Ryan, who's the homeowner. And I'm here to answer any questions that may require. I actually brought a couple of illustrations for the actual landscaping drawings and the location of the trees and the existing trees.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. The same question I asked the staff before. On the side of your home on Grandview, lot 2, 3, 4, and 5, do they have any sidewalks?
No, sir.
Okay. How about the house on Forest Heights, number 7? The lot number 7?
No, sir.
Okay, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Is that, follow up to that, the lot number 7 there on Forest Heights, is that lot developed? Is there a home there?
No.
So there is not a home there. And staff clarification, if when the time comes that a home is to be built on lot number 7, you see which lot I'm referring to, they're on Forest Heights, they would be required to have a sidewalk? Is that correct?
Yes, they would, and I apologize. I didn't realize you were asking about specific lots. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, those are vacant lots, so that's why there's no sidewalk there.
So of
that's
these
correct.
1 through 7, on this Grandview Forest Heights section of the development, lot number 1, the applicant's lot, is the only lot that is currently under construction or has a structure on it?
That's correct.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes, sir.
do you agree with the staff recommendation?
Yes, sir.
You understand that they want you to put a sidewalk on one street and not the other, right?
Yes, I understand that.
Okay, and you agree with that? You're
Yes,
okay
sir.
with that?
Yes.
Would you also be willing to put some money into the sidewalk trust fund in lieu of having
I'm
to
gonna
pay?
stop you there. You you cannot make that a requirement or a condition, and that was something that there's specific analysis for that. That's not something that we can consider with this application.
You can ask if it's make a voluntary country. Can you ask about a
No.
voluntary country? No.
I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
If I may, sir, lot through 10 through 14, which is across on Grandview, do they have a sidewalk? Are they developed?
Which lot, sir?
10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, which is across on Grandview Avenue from you.
That would be which block? Not block 7, correct? Is that from?
I think it's block 1.
It is.
On Grandview across the street from you.
It is, George.
It's block 1.
Yes, block 1. Block 1, lots 10 through 14, which is just to the, I don't know.
There's a sidewalk.
I think some do have sidewalks, some don't, sir.
What about, so if they are developed, they have sidewalks? If they are not developed, they do not have sidewalks? Or
Those are existing homes.
they're all existing homes?
They're all
some
existing
with, some
homes have been
without?
there for years.
Yeah, 10, 11, and 12 all look like they have homes on them. On this page.
On that one, okay.
13, 14 looks like it shares a lot
13,
around the
14
corner,
also
and there's a home on
is
it.
One,
That might be a thingy-mabob.
And there's a sidewalk further to the northwest, lot 7. Let's see a sidewalk 7 and 8, I think. Maybe it's just 7. I was out there this afternoon and I noticed that. I agree with Mr. Burris and everybody. There is a sidewalk in segments across the street,
Yes.
but not on the south.
Not on the south side. Yes, on the north side, there are some intermittent sidewalks. Yes, sir.
And I'd just like to remind the board that of number 4 in the criteria that says the Board of Adjustment shall not consider the non-presence of other sidewalks in the neighborhood as justification to grant the waiver. So it just has to meet one of the first, or both of the first 2, 1 and 2, and then one of the following 3.
If I may say this, a couple of years ago, we went through this, and we have a house on Riverside Drive and Sun Drive, I believe.
Sunset?
Sunset, yes. And it's a corner house. It has a sidewalk just around it, and no other house east of it or north of it have any sidewalks.
And what does
And
that have
that's
to do
the
with this
reason. That's the
application?
reason, policy-wise, the city has recommended, or at least the way we understood it as a board, to at least keep on one side sidewalks and not on the other. That's why I've been asking the questions.
And I understand that. I'm just saying there was a lot of questions about whether or not there are sidewalks or not. I'm just reminding the board that the non-presence of sidewalks is not a reason to grant the waiver. I'm just reiterating the criteria
Thank you.
based on
Thank
the
you.
presence of the conversation.
Any other, I have some comments, but I'll defer to other board members.
Well, and looking at the criteria as council has counseled, the criteria for the variance where it must meet both of the criteria, this is on page 2, section 3, points 1 and 2. So Grandview does meet this criteria. Forest Heights does not, talking about the frontage. Because if what we're understanding, the physical restraints are related to those specific trees there on Grandview, whereas Forest Heights does not have those trees.
Correct. I brought an illustration if the board would actually like to see it, which shows the trees and the proposed landscaping and the owner's proposed sidewalk down this side.
That sidewalk in Forest Heights?
Yes, it'd be Forest Heights. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Which dead ends up here, which the other lot, number 7, dead ends.
But then connect with lot
Yes.
7. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
but
you.
there's where actually the whole grove of trees is.
Anybody in the audience wish to speak on this before we get back?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Glenzer?
If I'm not mistaken, the application is to waive both Highlands and Grandview. That's the actual application, but staff has recommended only Grandview be waived. So is that something that, I guess that's in the motion, or can he actually,
We haven't gotten to a motion yet, so.
because it kind of seems like we haven't asked him what he,
Applicant, all right, can we clarify that? You're willing to put the sidewalk in on Forest right?
Yes.
You want to do that?
Yes,
You're okay with
that was
doing
our plan, yes.
So you would amend your application is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, if we can hear from the audience, I'd like to do that, please. If you come up forward. Again, we have full cross-examination here for all of our items. Anybody can cross-examine the applicant or the staff, so keep that in mind when your turn comes up.
Hi, I'm Barbara Reichert. I live at 305 Lakeview Drive in Tarpon, and I've been there a little over 20 years. Grandview, for any of you that aren't aware of it, is a street that is on his side of the street where he's building homes, goes east towards the lake, and then there's a petition in the middle.
Can you speak to the microphone, please?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Is that better? Okay. There's the side. It's a 2-lane road with a median in the middle, and it travels east on the side of the road that he's building homes on, and west on the other side of the road. So what happens on a normal day when people are trying to drive down that road, and I have a couple pictures just because the things that happen there are normal. People are trying to walk on the side of the road. There's no place for them to go. Kids are riding a bike on that road. There's no place for them to go. There's no sidewalk. So what happens is the median has different things that the city has put in over the years for the water situation there, where there's metal pipes that are standing up for, I believe it's aerated things. They're in the middle of that median. There's various trees, but there is no place for them to go. So without any sidewalks, it really puts people in jeopardy not to be safe. That road also gets very heavily flooded on both the top of it and the bottom of it. So over the years, it's been, when we fix the road, we're going to continue with sidewalks because they're needed from the city side of it, that they're going to, when it gets in the slot, to repair the brick road, which I know is another scenario, and I'm not trying to intertwine the two, but I think if you see on a daily basis what happens, there's people that walk their dogs, or on a, probably every day, there's 2 women that ride wheelchairs down there, or remote, those little remote cars that scooters, I guess, and walk their dogs down with it. They have no place to go. They literally, and I literally took a picture once I found out this was going to go on, because I'm driving down the road, and here she's coming right for walking. It would be up the street, and I'm driving south, and then the car behind me is totally going on the other side of the road in the opposite direction, just to be able to travel on that road. So without sidewalks, it really puts the normal people that use that road, and I beg to differ with you. I think that road is very used. There's a lot of people that live back there, a lot of people that live back on the water. There's, I don't know if it's an ALC or something that is now back there, where they have nurses and doctors going back there all the time, and people out there walking. And it really does need to have sidewalks there. If it is the problem with the trees, maybe it's something that we need to move the trees and put more trees. There's plenty of trees out there, and they're actually, if you look, they're encroaching the road. So is it something that we remove the trees and make it safer for everybody else in the community? Or is it something that we're just going to say, okay, let's not do it? It's a new development. I believe all new developments need them, and I believe there needs to be a right-of-way so people have the ability to pull over with a car, or the other people who are walking need a place to be able to move to get by. So whether or not that helps you, I'm not sure. I do have some pictures if you want them or want to see what happens. I'm welcome to give them to you.
Please do. Just
Before you give us the picture, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Are there any other places on this block, since I'm not familiar with the block, that has the same,
Sidewalks?
the same situation with trees, I'm
You
saying?
know, that's honestly one of the hardest places when you're right in that section, because the other trees are definitely set back further off the road.
Okay.
And there's bushes that make it difficult, but not the trees. That is probably the most difficult place on either side of the road going in either direction.
So let me ask you one more question on that. Leaving aside the difficult, is it possible to sway a sidewalk through there, in your opinion, with the
Yes.
trees where they are?
With the trees where they are, I think they would have to go, you would still be on your easement of the, the town's easement or 7 feet or whatever back. You could still get a sidewalk in there to have people be able to get off the road, I would believe, but I haven't measured it or anything.
Because I've walked down some streets where I'm almost making a right turn on a sidewalk and then a left turn, and
Yeah, no, you could get around it. It's just you're gonna have to use some of the property in your easement, or the town's easement.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you want me to leave these, or?
Yes, please
Okay.
pass them to our
Sure.
staff there, and we'll take them.
And one of the first pictures that I have here is just showing where where the street actually ends. It's an old brick road where it has the cement and the bricks. You'll see where they've placed their stakes in the ground, the builders, doesn't allow for somebody to get by there. And literally, where this person is riding on her scooter, you'll see it's right, doesn't allow her to go anywhere. So I'm just gonna leave these and you guys can have them. I hope that helped.
Could I try to summarize what you're stating? Is that, from what I understand, you're okay with the waiver for the sidewalk for this particular house on this side of the street, but what you want is sidewalks and a better street for everybody, for the kids to be walking and on their bicycles?
I'm not willing to waive it. I think there should be sidewalks here.
On both sides of the street, is that what you're saying?
No, at least, if anything new comes in there, it needs to have it. Everything else in there,
Is it fair to say that one side is sufficient? You don't need sidewalks on both sides? Is that what you're saying?
we need the ability to have, like, across the street, directly across from where this is, there is not sidewalks. Directly from where this
There is a sidewalk. On Grandview?
There isn't.
Directly across from this?
I see, okay.
Isn't it like 2 houses
All right, I'm
down?
sorry, all right.
Yeah, there isn't, there isn't.
It
You're
goes a
correct.
little bit for the further west,
Okay, I think it's down a couple houses, but,
east, I'm sorry.
yeah. And but if we're gonna have developments, they really need to either have them or not have them.
All right, anybody else? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
You see these?
Yeah.
Then it just stops.
My name is Christine Warwick, and I live at 1607 Lonesome Pine Lane, which is the street back at, south of Grandview. And my property, my 2 lots, back up to Mr. Cooper's development here. And so it is, if you've been to that neighborhood, you know, I've lived there 26 years. You know that it's an older neighborhood, has lots of people who walk their dogs, take their kids for walks there. And this is a small development that Mr. Cooper's making there. And it would be good to have sidewalks there. Grandview is a really dangerous street because of one thing, the median, and the bricks are uneven on both sides for the whole road. And even though there are sidewalks on the opposite side of the street, that's quite a distance with the 2 lanes and the median there away from where they are. And to have one house have sidewalks, the next one not, and then Mr. Cooper is saying that the rest of the development would have sidewalks. Why would we have a non-continuous sidewalk there when I think the trees could easily, something could be done around them or taking them out or whatever, and make it much safer for people who are walking and living in that area.
Any comments from the board? Thank you very much, Ms. Warwick. Mr. Burris?
Yes, I want to ask the staff, how can you approve a sidewalk for Forest Heights and not for Grandview? Won't it look awful just to stop right there at the edge?
You're asking my opinion of how it would look?
Yes, that's my first question. I have another follow-up.
When I was out there, this is what I saw. This is a corner lot on a block that has no houses except the one that's under construction. The city The city has a sidewalk policy because the city considers sidewalks important. I've learned that the city considers sidewalks important and they consider trees to be important. So when I looked at this, that was in my mind. What I saw was people walking up and down Grandview. I was there very early in the morning, so there wasn't a lot of traffic. I know there's traffic through the neighborhood. All I'm saying is it's not a collector. It's not a busy, high-speed street. It's a brick street, so it's not easy to navigate at a high speed. So you've got a mix of things going on there. People could walk through, you could easily put a path through those trees. You could probably put a 2 or 3 foot sidewalk through those trees. What I could not come to the conclusion is that you can put a city standard 4 foot sidewalk through those trees. If it ends at the corner and picks up again on the other side, which I judged just when I was out there, the rest of those lots on Grandview on that block could accommodate a sidewalk, in my opinion. It might look disjointed, but I think it would be okay because the function was the overriding consideration for me rather than how it looks. So that, I hope that answers your, as far as when I went out there and looked at it. That's kind of what I used to judge it.
So your overriding consideration is that we shouldn't disturb the trees, that's why we're not putting a sidewalk there? Are you making a decision on your own, or is it this city policy?
Well, I'm
My
making
understanding is that city policy,
yeah.
you have to have sidewalks.
Yes. So from a legal perspective, the city policies, you have to have sidewalks unless you apply for a sidewalk waiver and the evidence demonstrated at the hearing demonstrates that you meet the criteria to be granted a waiver. And that is why the applicant is here this evening. So if you feel that the evidence, the competent substantial evidence does not meet the criteria to grant a waiver, which I believe the application has been amended to just be a waiver for Grandview, then if you feel it does not meet it, then you can make a motion to deny. If you feel that it does meet it, then you make a motion to approve, or you vote in that way. But yes, the city policy is that there should be a sidewalk. That is why the applicant is here this evening.
Thank you.
I have a question. Okay,
Yes, sir.
But I don't even know who to ask. Again, I've not been to this street. I don't know the trees. I don't know how much curving would be. I know you said that 4 foot wouldn't fit in this maze of trees, and you say a 2 foot would?
I'm not a sidewalk engineer, but
you were there to see it.
I was there to see it. There's a couple considerations. One is, will it fit? 2 is, if something does fit, what do you have to do to put it in? And will the trees be able to, incur any damage, either short-term or long-term? I don't know the answers to all those because I'm not an arborist and I'm not a sidewalk engineer. But the criteria talks about physical impediments, practicality. The applicant is asked to be able to save the trees. The trees are on city right-of-way, so they're the city's trees.
I'm not saying to harm the trees in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
I'm
so
just curious of the size.
The size of the trees?
No, the size of the sidewalk.
If I can't answer exactly what size sidewalk would fit. And I also did not research whether the city would accept a narrower sidewalk. We probably would, but I can't answer that. Public Works can.
So we could technically waive the 4 foot standard.
The criteria, you can make a motion with conditions, but the criteria that is to be considered is based on strict application of the requirement, whether they get the waiver or they don't get the waiver. So not a flexible application saying we require a 4 foot sidewalk, but we think a 2 foot sidewalk could fit, so we're going to do that. It has to be strict application.
You could also ask the applicant if they want to continue it and have staff research whether.
I have a quick question. And I don't know, once again, kind of like Mike, I'm not sure who to ask. The existing 7 lots that are kind of in that little block bordered by Forest Heights, Grandview, and Sunshine, those are currently undeveloped. How many other undeveloped lots, because we're talking about street and traffic when there could be at least 7 more families and perhaps even more, 10 more families eventually using that. And you would be in perpetuity granting a sidewalk waiver that might be needed down the road. I mean, trees last a long time, but you know, the better good could be for the long range development is to stick to the city standards, and unfortunately, perhaps lose some trees. Maybe not. Who knows? But and I think the applicant mentioned that the other lots 2, 3, 4, and 5 would be able to put sidewalk in. So you have like a whole bunch of people that could, and I'm not entirely sure he wants, if he's trying to save the trees or just not put a sidewalk in. I'm not sure of that portion.
The other option could be that the condition could be worded that the applicant, or if it's denied, that you ask that the applicant design a sidewalk to save some trees, and we as staff would carry that direction and ask the applicant to save as many trees as possible. I don't think all the trees have to come down for the 4-foot sidewalk. City standard is that a sidewalk border the property line within 1 foot of the property line. So that's the standard location.
I have a,
Mr. Hrabowski.
yes, in this photograph, it has delineated underground gas line. Is that in any way a hindrance to the sidewalk being put in? I don't know why that is appearing on this.
No, can't be. Gas lines are buried deep.
I'm just asking why it's on the photograph. Are we to consider that in any fashion?
And I just want to clarify something that I said. I know when you guys do variances that you can put conditions on it. This is, because this is a waiver, there's nothing in this section of code that says that you can put a condition on this. Because it's not a variance, you're either waiving the requirement to have a sidewalk or not waiving the requirement to have a sidewalk. So typically when you get a variance request, you can put conditions on it. On this, you don't, your code does not give you the ability to do that. So I want to clarify that.
But the city already outlined conditions in this draft.
In their
Their recommendation is with conditions.
Their recommendation was approval for Grandview and not.
It says Grandview Drive only is outlined and subject to the following conditions. All existing hardwood and palm trees, at least 8 existing trees in the right-of-way of Grandview Drive, shall remain and may not be removed. They shall be properly maintained by the property owner as required by the City of Tarpon Springs Code of Ordinances. 2, the applicant shall submit a plan revision to building permit application number 18710, showing the sidewalk on Forest Heights Drive to terminate at the property corner. So when we were to make a motion, would we add those conditions or not?
No, because your code does not allow for conditions on a sidewalk waiver.
So
while staff has that in there, the board doesn't have the ability to make conditions. It's because because this is not a variance. This is a sidewalk waiver. We've had a couple of these very recently. But because it's not a variance and it's a waiver, the code specifically doesn't allow for a condition, whereas your variance criteria does allow for a motion with conditions.
So the staff recommendation is not a compliance with the criteria in which we should follow.
Well, now we're getting 2 different things. The criteria is the criteria.
Oh, no, excuse me, not the criteria.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm an attorney, so words matter. So the criteria is the criteria. Yes, the staff recommendation with the conditions, you cannot approve those conditions. It's either you give them the waiver or
it's
you
a
don't
yes
give
or
them the
no.
waiver.
It's a yes or no, there's no conditions.
So I appreciate the clarification, and those conditions would be more appropriate for the building permit.
Okay, are we ready for a motion?
I still had one more question on this. Where I'm having an issue is on criteria 2. I can agree with that. On condition 1, I'm having trouble agreeing with the physical surroundings and the conditions and the physical environmental conditions that are unique to the specific property involved, because I don't know, I'm missing a fact of what can fit through these trees or not.
Or how many of the 8 might have to be.
Do all the trees have to be taken out? Does one have to be taken out? You know, again,
Right.
we speak about the the tree trunks possibly causing issues with the sidewalk. I don't know how far the tree trunks are from the sidewalk. It's an issue in many places where they'll, cut into a branch or a tree trunk and re-pour. A lot of things, people will shave sidewalks. But I'm listening also to residents speak of, and I'm looking at this roadway that looks like you can bounce down the street. So I don't know which is worse, put people in a place where they can't walk or give them a place that they can't walk because there's no sidewalk there. And there is no sidewalk on the other side of the street. And it's kind of hard to have people, walk a certain distance and then cross the street to walk again on the sidewalk and then walk back on the other side of the street to walk again on the sidewalk. And we're in a situation where there's another 6 or 7 homes about to be built that don't have this issue. So I kind of think we're making a mosh podge. That too.
All right, Mr. Cooper, please, real quick.
To clarify something, block 7, which you're looking at, right?
Block 7, that is,
Which this house is located on lot number 1, block 7, and half of lot number 2. What you are looking at, right, is an old, outdated plat, right? The actual lots themselves, which we reconfigured, because we found out at the time, since they were out of conformity width-wise and smaller. So basically, there will not be 7 lots in plot 7. There'll actually be 5 or 4. So we increase the size of each one of them. So along Grandview, there would actually be this lot and 2 others. So this is, what you're looking at right there is lot number 1 and half lot number 2. So there's only 5 that would be in there at the maximum.
so let me ask this question then.
Yes, sir.
Of staff, why did we get lots that don't correspond to what's there?
What Mr. Cooper's referring to is Lot 1 was combined with half of Lot 2. Lot 2 was split in two. He combined 1 and half of 2
Doing larger.
and 3 and half of 2. It sounds to me like he plans to combine 4 and 5 in some way, but that has not been done. So this reflects the current plat.
Because they were too small, the lots.
Okay, I
He's
understand that,
telling
but,
you, I believe, that he plans to do that, but
but it has no effect on lot 7.
Lot 7, no, that would be at the lot 7 on Forest Heights behind us?
Right.
No, sir. Which we anticipate.
That's what you originally said. You said this,
No, a total of 7 lots.
okay, total of 7.
Yeah.
So it's not lot 7.
No, not lot 7.
So
Lot
you
7
combined lot 1 with half of lot 2
Yes, sir.
and half of lot 2 with lot 3.
Correct?
But that doesn't change my original comment that you're missing a sidewalk all down the street completely.
You mean Forest Heights or Grandview?
I mean on Grandview.
Grandview has sidewalks on the north side, except across this property, on all 3 of the new homes. That goes from Sunshine all the way up to directly across from here.
Right. But we don't have any description of what's going to be built on lots half of 2 and 3, on lot 4, which could be 4 and half of 5. I don't know what's going to be there. But my point is, you can't have, or you shouldn't have people on sidewalk 10, 11, and 12, then having to cross the street and still not having a sidewalk because 13, 14 has no sidewalk and it's existing.
I understand the confused, yes, sir. Because some lots in the neighborhood do have them, some don't.
But
Yes, sir.
my original question is it feasible to put a sidewalk in at all 6 inches?
Yes, sir. Of course it is.
So where do we stop? Is there a 1 foot you can put in, a 2 foot you could put in? Since staff doesn't know, do you know the answer to that question?
No, sir. I would assume there would be some sort of sidewalk that could be configured between those trees, right? Depending on the width of the sidewalk, from 1 inch up to 4 feet, because those are very large oak trees.
Right, I understand
So,
that.
depending on the arborist and the root line, it is possible there could be some sort of a configuration there.
Well, I'm just, I
understand
know who
totally.
you are. I've seen you before. I just want to say that you know, I've listened to people here speaking about safety. I see the roadway. I know what this is like. We have many roadways here in Tarpon that look like that. I go down Lemon or Orange, or, you know, my car's shocks go bad. I know what they're dealing with. And I understand people drive slow, but you still have people that are in the middle of a street walking their dogs or walking with their kids and whatnot. And I'd hate to be making a decision in a negative way regarding safety of human beings, rather than whether you could move a sidewalk.
I totally respect and totally understand that concern.
Is it possible to do that?
Well, on Grandview Drive, which is a double boulevard street, right, in which I talk to neighbors out there daily for the last 6 years, that is not the concern of the sidewalk in this 80-foot section. It's basically a concern of the road itself. But and there are sidewalks on other sides of it, but I totally understand.
Do you own lots 2, 3, 4, and 5? Just curious.
Yes, sir.
So you will be building there as well?
Well, we will have buyers build there, and they do not have groves of trees in front of those.
I understand that.
Yes, sir.
I'm just trying to make peace.
Okay, can we
I
plow
have
some
a
new
question.
ground,
I
Mr.
have one
Burrows?
more question. Just for clarification purposes, since you own all this property here, Lot 1 that which you own is combined with Lot 8, not part of Lot 2, according to this.
I'm confused, sir. Which block and which parcel?
Your lot number 1, which one you have,
No, sir. This is owned by Diane Ryan. I'm here as a builder representative. She owns lot number 1 and half of lot number 2.
Did there maybe used to be a lot number 8?
Pardon?
That's between 1 and 7?
Lot number 8 would be yes, but that's owned, but not by the applicant at all. None of these are. The applicant owns lot number 1 and half of lot number 2.
But in this configuration, 8 is.
part of one.
Maybe I could help. And Tori, it might be that
Yes.
you didn't. There were originally 8 lots in here. Part of there was a lot 8, and I think you split that.
Correct.
Part of it went to 1. Anyway,
Part went to 1,
It
part
was
went to
non-buildable,
7.
yes.
there are now 6 lots there. That number may go down if Mr. Cooper combines further.
Gotcha.
This accurately reflects the lots that are there today, according to the, recorded with the property appraiser. So this is the number of lots.
And maybe a follow-up to what Mr. Eisner was saying about the possibility of sidewalk options on Grandview. And respecting what you're saying, you're not a sidewalk engineer, but are the city requirements for sidewalks that they must be, I believe there's the reference of 4 feet. Is that a set in stone thing, or is it that's the standard? However, if there are things such as trees and irregular shapes, those have the potential to be adjusted to meet the topographical nature of the area.
Yeah,
If you have
If the
seen those things in
sidewalk-
your professional experience.
Yeah, if this sidewalk waiver were not granted, I believe city staff would work with Mr. Cooper to be able to put some type of sidewalk in. If trees have to come out, they have to come out. If there's an opportunity to reduce the width, then we can do that. That's really a public works question. I don't know if we're required to have a 4 foot for any kind of disabled type access. I know minimum path widths, for example, downtown, 44 inches or 42 inches for required minimum width for walking and disabled access. I'm not sure that carries to a local street, but staff would work with the applicant if this waiver were denied to be able to fit a sidewalk in with the least amount of tree damage. I can promise you that.
Thank you.
If I could interject, maybe we should continue this. There's a lot of questions raised tonight and we don't have any answers for. But I see Ms. Erwiller over there. Do you want to give us some thoughts, please?
Excuse me. Heather Erler, Planning and Zoning Director.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am. So the width of the sidewalk, the 4-foot requirement, that's dictated by ADA. So whatever the minimum ADA requirement is, which would be something that we would work with Public Works to determine and with the building official to determine, based on that would be the minimum that we can allow. Now, that is not to say that 4 feet is going to be that distance, because we have the majority of the ones downtown we're at 42 inches. That is creeped up from 36. Generally, it's based on the width of a wheelchair passing a pedestrian in that space, and that's really what that limitation is based on and where that limitation is coming from. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's still better to have the 36 than to try to go over this bumpy, rocky road, though.
I will not dispute that with you, but again, that's going to be set by the requirements of the Florida Building Code and what we can actually accept.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Burris.
We're ready for a motion?
Yes, I think we're ready for a motion. I have some comments, but I'll wait for the motion.
I'll make a motion to deny approval of the requested waiver.
And I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second to deny the waiver on both streets. Discussion? Well, let me start off. I've always been pro sidewalk and also pro oak trees, and we're all split on this issue. And we'd like to keep safety, we'd like to keep the trees in place. This is a 60-foot right-of-way. Grandview, or maybe it's 50 feet, it's hard to tell.
60 feet,
Part
that's
of it
correct.
is 60 feet, and further to the west is 50 feet, I believe. So it's a very narrow right-of-way for a collector street. I think they're required to be 80 feet. And in addition, the road is divided. There's a old road, brick road, which we've all seen. It's got this median in the middle, so there's not much room for sidewalks on either side. However, there is partial sidewalks in segments on the other side of the street. Once the oak trees are removed, it would take years to replace, and I would urge that this be deferred until we can come up with a unified plan. I think the city needs to get involved and fix the street. The street is in pretty bad shape. I think we can all recognize that. And it needs a sidewalk for the people that are biking and walking. I don't know that they need it on both sides of the street. On Riverside Drive, for example, which is a heavily pedestrian traffic street. I live on Riverside Drive, and there's a sidewalk only on one side and not on the other. And you got to go from one side to the other in one spot. But people do it, and it's not a problem. But to have it on both sides of the street is, I don't think, necessary, especially when the right-of-way is so narrow. The other street, for example, I live on Enclosure Drive, which is a very narrow right-of-way, and there is no sidewalk. People would never imagine having a sidewalk on this street. We walk in the street, and we have for 40 years. And people are very comfortable with walking in the street in an area where there's very little traffic. And the one we're talking about here, Forest Heights Drive, it's a dead-end road. It's a driveway, perhaps. I was there, and there's no sidewalks on Forest Heights Drive or on Vista Place to the west.
Right.
And people, I think, are very comfortable with that atmosphere. A lot of trees and a lot of hills, and to have sidewalks where the trees are, I don't know is a good idea. I think it would be harmful to the atmosphere for a very pretty subdivision, but it does need help, but I think it should be on a unified basis. And as Mr. Burris said, we're on the Sunset and Riverside, lady requested a waiver back 30 or 35 years ago, and the Board of Commissioners denied it. And it's been sitting there for 40 years, a dead-end sidewalk, never been used. And it just seems kind of silly when there's a sidewalk on the other side and you don't need sidewalks on both sides. I don't know what the answer is. I would urge the city to fix the problem not on a haphazard case-by-case basis, but to do it at one time, like Mr. Eisner said, not in a hodgepodge type operation. But that's my thoughts, and I guess I'm going to vote in the minority. I would recommend a waiver on both sides, but the applicant has just asked for a waiver on one side, so that's the application as it sits, is just a waiver on Grandview, and he's willing to put in the sidewalk on Forest Heights Drive. So that's my thoughts about the motion. Are we ready for this?
Oh, hold on. I tend to agree with much of what the chairman has said. I'm wholeheartedly in favor of trees and also in favor of sidewalks. And so this is a challenge. There's sidewalks on both sides of my street. Nobody uses them. We walk down the middle of the road, but it's not a heavily driven road. You saw pictures of the road flooded. It's only going to get worse when you put more pavement there. That's a fact. So you put more sidewalks there, it's going to flood worse. But people do need a safe place to traverse through town. So how do you weigh that? 100, 200, 300-year-old trees, not going to get those back quickly with pavement, but as Mr. Glenser said, if the trees die and you put a little 2-foot thing through there, then what are you going to have? So this is a challenge. This is our first one tonight. Yeah, I would be in favor of postponing it, but I don't know who would solve the problem. Who's going to fix it? I mean, is the city going to come in and fix it? That they sure need to fix that road. I mean, the road is problematic to begin with.
There's a motion.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. We could
All right,
ask
yeah,
them to take it back, but if no one is in favor of that, then I guess we'll proceed with what we have in front of us.
Further discussion, the motion, Mr. Eisner?
I've heard comments made about the trees being 100 and 200 years old, and nobody made a comment about really removing any tree. The whole comment was what can fit between the trees without disturbing them and giving safe passage for Tarpon residents. I was not in favor of taking a tree down at all unless there was possibly a small tree. You know, I again don't have the variables in this. I don't know the size.
Right.
I don't know the size. I know that I see some big trees there, but
Pretty
I don't
big.
know which ones are blocking, which ones aren't. I don't know.
Existing curbs 3 feet into the road. This is 3 feet, right along the tree line.
Right, but I still don't know whether we can get in there with a 3 foot, a 2 foot. What is feasible to make both sides happy? So at this point, without knowing those variables, I can't be comfortable. Well,
Might I remind the board that while this discussion may be helpful at some future time down the road, for this application, there are criteria that you must weigh whether the evidence meets the criteria or does not meet the criteria.
And then given
For the
that,
criteria, there are the first two must both be met and one of the last three. So if you feel that the criteria have been met, then you would vote against the motion. If you feel the criteria have been met, wait, did I do that right? If you feel the criteria have been met, then vote against the motion. If you feel the criteria have not been met, then vote for the motion. That is my legal disclaimer.
I would vote in favor of the application as amended, with the staff recommending approval of that.
but we cannot
That is not
amend
the
it.
motion that is on the table at this
That's
point.
the
The
problem.
motion that is on the table is
I
to
know
deny the
that,
waiver.
but I'm saying this is what I would,
Because a waiver is a yes/no.
That's the problem.
a waiver is for the one street that he's asking
No,
for.
because the application
He
is,
amended the
He
application.
amended the application. The application now is just for a waiver on Grandview.
Correct.
And the motion is to deny both. And are we ready for a vote?
Is the oh, I understand.
Wait a minute. No. The motion is to deny.
The application as amended.
So he would have to build both sidewalks.
Yes, that's what the,
Right.
that's what the motion
Right.
is. And there's been some comments in the public. We're not supposed to reopen the public hearing, but if it's really urgent,
We will not be opening the public hearing with a motion on the table.
Where is the documentation in the application that the request for the waiver is just for Grandview?
It was amended here this evening.
in our rules, the application
Okay.
can be amended to make it a less of a waiver or less of a variant, and he did that. Thank you. All right, so we are ready for a roll call, please.
Ms. Turner.
Deny.
So, okay, it's a motion
Yes,
to
I'm
deny.
sorry.
So are you in favor of the motion to deny?
I'm in favor of the motion to deny,
yes.
yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes. Mr. Eisner?
I agree with what she said.
Yes.
A yes on the motion.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
Mr. Obowski?
No.
Mr. Elliott?
No. The board has voted to deny the waiver request for both streets, so that's the way it is. Thank you very much for your patience, everyone. All right, next item is number 6. Yeah, okay, sure. Application 18-170, 451 East Lemon Street. Staff recommendation, please.
Okay, this is an application for 451 East Lemon Street property to authorize an adjustment to the impervious surface ratio from the maximum allowable ratio of 0.8 to a proposed ratio of 0.916 for a light industrial project that's currently under construction. This is located in the city's special area plan district. The impervious surface ratio is codified basically in that special area plan in the downtown gateway character district that this property's in. So it's in the transect infill code. It's in the residential plus industrial / office transect. In summary, basically the applicant is constructing a light industrial warehouse project within this district, and the project was approved with an internal driveway and parking area that would consist of pavers. This is under construction, and as the applicant began to interview various tenants, he found that the tenants' needs would include truck traffic, heavier traffic, more frequent traffic, and he began to be concerned that there may be potential issues with pavers as opposed to just regular asphalt or blacktop. So he came in to revise the building permit to include asphalt. It changed the pavers to asphalt. That's when the impervious surface ratio discrepancy was noted. This change would not affect the drainage system. That was the first thing that really the overriding concern that staff looked at. The city's stormwater engineer and the applicant's engineer have both analyzed the project and confirmed that the drainage system will handle this change and was designed as though the project were already all impervious. It's a little bit of a nuance, the difference. The staff recognized the paver surface to satisfy the special area plan impervious surface ratio. But the stormwater was designed as though that surface was a solid asphalt surface, so that's the difference. So there's quite an extensive staff analysis because there's 9 criteria for ISR ratio, ISR adjustments. This was publicly noticed. I received one verbal no objection from someone who got a postcard, so there was no written response to that. I'll summarize just a few of the finding of fact, and then if we want to go through the detail, we can do that. So the property size and the special area plan requirements present the hardship with respect to the strict compliance with the ISR standard by limiting the capacity of the permitted light industrial business to accommodate to its full extent the light industrial tenants that could occupy this building. The hardship is not self-imposed by the applicant. The adjustment will not interfere with the rights or injure the rights of affected property owners. The adjustment is in harmony with countywide rules, city comprehensive plan, and special area plan. The adjustment is the minimum necessary to reasonably accommodate the use. So it provides that more substantial surface. There is still paver surface remaining in the project, but this was the minimum needed to accommodate the use. Also, just reiterate that the footprint of the project has not changed. The adjustment will not confer a special privilege upon the applicant, so all the other requirements are still being met. The stormwater, open space, landscaping, all those types of things. Granting the adjustment would not constitute an amendment to any of the city's codes, and a future land use map amendment is not an appropriate remedy for this application. Staff is recommending approval of an adjustment to the impervious surface ratio from 0.80 to 0.916. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? Applicant, wish to make a statement?
Good evening, George Zoots, 46 West Lemon Street, Tarpon Springs, and I appreciate your time. As pointed out by the staff, there will be no additional coverage, and what was approved by the regulatory agencies as well as reviewed by the city and by my private engineer, the same areas will be covered. One other thing that I wanted to point out is because the city does not have a drainage plan, I've taken it on myself to get this approved, had built a drainage plan underneath the drive parking area, and which has been approved. And there was concerns brought up by my paving contractors as well as engineers that with pavers, which tend to be more maintenance and will start to fail over time, where asphalt would be less likely to do so, could start to damage the drainage field that is built underneath the drive. So unfortunately, the town does not have a drainage plan in downtown Tarpon Springs, but I've taken it on myself to create one.
Thank you. Any questions of the applicant?
I have a question, and thank you for, I was noting that of you seeming to, I'm no engineer, but I was raised by a civil engineer, so I was bored as a child by a lot of these details, so I do appreciate you taking that above and beyond approach to the drainage. On your letter from Ozona Engineering, it referenced that you have a slotted diameter 18, it says foot. I'm assuming it's an inches diameter pipe.
The pipe on the
exfiltration bed consists of a slotted 18-foot diameter pipes.
18-foot diameter pipes. No, I don't think they're 18 feet.
That would be inches?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's just off by.
Math.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like,
it's
wow,
kind
you
of
dug
a neat,
the
if
China.
you want to know, it's kind of a neat system that I built 2 concrete cells on the north and side of the drive parking lot. And I actually went through the expense to make the building. I'm really trying to enhance the building, and I'm really on this project of enhancing the neighborhood. So I have the pipes coming from the roof underground, and they dump into these cells. The cells, when they fill up above about 3 feet, and they're quite volume in each one, they pop off into a pipe that's got rock all around it. So it'll become a drain field after that.
A French drain kind of thing? Is that what they?
Yeah, kind of like that, yeah.
Okay.
So it wasn't cheap, but I think it's gonna, they all feel as though it's gonna work fine. And I think that the asphalt will not affect, nobody will see it. There'll still be, as pointed out by the staff, the front, which I've enhanced. I'm going through the expense of, instead of it just being a metal building, I'm stuck going up, putting like crown molding across the front. I'm meeting my awning guy tomorrow to go in with and give it some curb appeal in there so that, and the pavers will be in the front. So that will be the curb appeal that they'll see from the roadside. I flipped the building around. Originally, I had the building where the parking lot was going to be facing the west side. And I had talked to the property owner next door that plans to build her home there someday, and she was sensitive to light and all that. So I flipped the building around, which wasn't my first choice, but that way she won't be affected by the flood lighting or cars pulling right up that will be flooding right into it. So it's been a project.
Well, appreciate your attention to detail and investment in the town.
I have a question for you. The drainage you just described, is it in exchange of a retention pond? You're not using a retention pond, are you?
No, it's
Okay.
not a retention
That
pond.
takes place of what you described
I
as far as
I
drainage and
created
all
the
that?
drainage solution for it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Questions from the public?
I have a quick question while he's up there. Was there any other surface contemplated between pavers and asphalt that may have accomplished the same engineering feat of being pervious yet being able to withstand the load? I mean, was it A or B, asphalt or paver, or was there any other?
I mean, I didn't explore concrete, but I think concrete has its issues too. So I thought asphalt was the more common thing, and if you looked around, I think 99.9% of anywhere in Tampa Bay is going to be asphalt, if not further out. That's it turned out to be the best solution to keep the maintenance down. I have pavers in my driveway, which doesn't have Federal Express trucks running in it or anything else. Grass is growing through it. They're starting to separate. Their maintenance, but it's my driveway, so I'm not going to be a critic of it, but I do have to repair it.
I just wondered if there was anything else contemplated, or if there was just two chosen.
Okay, we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to accept, second.
Second by Ms. Turner. Mr. Eisner had to take a short break, so Mr. Glancer's going to vote in his absence, okay? For this vote, for this item? Okay.
Mr. Glenser, you said that you had a conflict, but not on this.
Not in this case.
Okay. I just wanted to. Oh, Mr. Eisner's back. So. Mr. Eisner, are you going to abstain from voting on this?
Well, you're here, now you got to vote. Mr. Zoots, thank you for investing in Tarpon Springs while we got a minute. Appreciate it. Everything that can help Lemon Street will be most appreciated. Thank you for sticking your neck out. All right.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved. Kim, please.
Ms. Turner?
Approve.
Mr. Eisner?
Approve.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
Mr. Rabowski?
Yes.
Mr. Elliott?
Yes. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
Okay, number
Thank you.
7 on our agenda, application 18-171. Front and side yard setback on Hope Street and Spruce Street. Staff, please.
Okay, this is a request to authorize a variance to the front yard setback and a variance to the required side street yard setback, and to allow construction of a single-family residence on a non-conforming lot. This is on the corner of Hope and West Spruce Street. The applicant is requesting this variance, reducing the front setback from 20 feet to 10 feet and reducing the side street setback from 7.5 feet to 5 feet. This lot is a non-conforming lot. It's a little over 31 feet wide and 95 feet deep, and it's a little under 3,000 square feet. So it is a small lot. The reason that you all need to would be required to look at this is that the lot is held in common ownership with the property next door to the southwest. Summarizing the staff analysis with the findings, the lot was created prior to the effective date of the code of the current ordinance, and the lot was not created in violation of any previous zoning ordinance. The lot was not combined with the neighboring lot. It was never combined, so it was not combined to do any, have anything meet setbacks, but it has always been a lot of record by itself. The condition on the property for which the variance is requested is related to the physical configuration of the lot in a small size. The conditions and special circumstances of this lot have not been created by the applicant. Strict application of the dimensional standards would severely limit development on the subject property. It's already limited, so that would limit it further. And granting the variance, allowing these reductions of setbacks would not impact the surrounding properties and is in keeping with the neighborhood pattern. It is a fairly densely, I guess, covered and developed neighborhood. Lots of older, non-conforming properties, so it would be in character with the immediate area. This was publicly noticed, and there were no responses received to those notices. Staff recommends approval of the variance for relief from the minimum front yard setback, minimum side street setback, and approval of construction of a single-family residence on a non-conforming lot of record. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. Is the applicant in the audience? Is there anybody here in opposition to this application? Okay. Please state your name, sir.
Pantelis Master Vasilis, 58 West Center Street, Tarpon Springs. Just basically, you guys have a picture of what I'm looking to build, and I need those setbacks to make it happen. It's a great addition to that road, and you know, that's basically what I need to make this work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the applicant? Hang on, don't go away. Questions from the board of the applicant or the staff?
I believe it was mentioned that the lot 41, which is the application, is also owned by the same person who owns lot 42, the adjacent lot 42. And it looks like from the aerial photograph that lots 43 through 45 already have a home on it. Am I looking at that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. And those were all previously combined into one property.
43 through 45 has been combined into one.
42 through 45.
Oh, 42 through 45 have. So
yes.
41 is separate from all of that.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Turner, second by Mr. Burris. Discussion. Thank you for the rendering, by the way. I've been asking for these for a long time. Nice
Chairman,
to see that.
did you ask for any public comment on that item?
I said
Okay,
there's
I
nobody
apologize.
here.
I missed that.
Anybody here on this item? Okay.
Because I heard just opposition.
Thank you. All right, roll call vote. Ms. Yothers.
Ms. Turner,
Approve.
Mr. Eisner,
Yes.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Mr. Hrabowski,
Yes.
Mr. Elliott.
Yes. Okay. You have 2 years to pull your permit, sir. Next, number 8, application 18-172, 1620 Seabreeze Drive. Staff, please. Patricia.
Okay, this is a request to reduce the required front yard setback and to reduce the total side yard setback in the R100 zoning district at 1620 Seabreeze Drive. And this request is submitted for the purpose of moving an existing septic tank drain field, leach field, from the behind the house to the front of the house, and putting a garage addition on the house so that it's configured to accommodate the drain field and allow the applicant to drive in from the side loading garage. The front yard setback reduction request is from the required 25 feet to 16 feet. And the total side setback reduction is from 25 feet to 19.67. In this case, we have a residence that is already built to that total side setback, 19.67. So the applicant's addition would propose to extend that existing current nonconformity. The garage addition is consistent with the current non-conforming side yard setback. So the front is really the only one that would be a new kind of change. The subject site is a non-conforming lot of record. The R100 district requires a 75-foot width. This lot is a 70-foot width, similar to several of the lots in Seabreeze that you all have seen. This application was publicly noticed, and there were no responses received to the notices. And just summarizing in the findings of fact, the applicant is requesting to build the garage, reconfigure the driveway to a side-loading garage, and this would be to accommodate a septic leach field proposed to be relocated from the rear yard to the front yard. The lot is non-conforming lot of record, as it does not meet the 75-foot minimum lot width. The lot was created prior to the effective date of the current ordinance and was not created in violation of any previous zoning ordinance. The conditions of the lot are not self-created or the result of an action by the applicant. Strict application of the dimensional standards would limit additional development on the subject property and prevent relocation of the septic leach field. And granting the variance would allowing the reduction in setbacks is in keeping with the existing development pattern in the neighborhood, which has several older homes, some of which are close to the street and several of which do have non-conforming side setbacks. Staff recommends approval of the variance for relief from the minimum front yard and minimum total side yard setback requirements. Are there any questions?
Is the applicant here? Anybody in opposition to this application? Okay. Let's hear from the applicant, and then the board can question everybody.
Good evening. I'm Michael Singer, 1620 Seabreeze Drive in Tarpon Springs. I want this variance, this septic leach field variance, moved to the front yard as it's a VE15 flood zone. And I think it's better served in the front yard as opposed to 30 feet from the Gulf at 6 feet above sea level.
Okay, any questions from the board?
Yes, I do. What is the height in the front of the house that you said it's 6 feet in the back?
It's gradual. I couldn't tell you exactly. I think it's probably 8 or 10. And probably 50 feet further away from the Gulf. It'll be a mound system septic anyway, so we will mound it.
There's no elevation.
I don't see any elevations, that's why I'm asking. I just... No, that's the distance off of the sides. In the boundary survey, is this where your, where is the septic?
What he's asking the variance for.
Yes, I'm trying to find out where the septic tank is right now. Do you have any idea where the septic tank is presently?
Yeah, it's in the backyard.
But I mean, where? I mean...
Is it not marked on it? It
Yeah,
should be on one of these drawings.
The second drawing proposing the addition shows the tank and the pump that the applicant will need to pump the material to the front yard.
The
Is that
septic
correct?
tanks will remain, yeah.
Yeah, the tank will remain where it is. Currently, the leach field's in the backyard, but there's no drawing of the current leach field. I'm guessing
So this is then, so this is what you're showing me, is just the shed.
I'm guessing it's north of the tank. It's behind the tank, towards the water.
Yes, it is north.
Yeah.
right about the center of the yard.
So is it the lines that are moving or the tank that's moving?
It's the lines, the septic lines, the leach field lines that are moving to the front yard will then pump from the existing tanks to the front of the yard instead of to the back of the yard where it is now.
Okay.
And I guess always has been.
I think there are several houses on Seabreeze that also have their drain fields in the front.
Yeah, it's a pretty common thing in that flood zone to move those to the front yard and re-landscape around them.
Okay, any further questions from the board? Comments from the public? Are you ready for a motion?
Just a question. I'm assuming this is a front load garage?
Existing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's an existing one-car garage front load facing the street.
And there were no objections from the public?
We didn't receive any comment at all on this one.
Open for a motion.
Was there any response from the man?
Question from John? Okay.
Was there any response from the notifications?
No, no responses at all.
No one here to speak against or for?
Nope.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Me and motion first.
What's that?
Oh, never mind. Losing my mind.
Discussion, the motion to approve from Mr. Burris, I think, no. Who made the motion?
I did.
Mr. Hrabowski, second by Mr. Eisner. All right, let's have a roll call, please, Ms. Yothers.
Ms. Turner,
Approve.
Mr. Eisner,
Yes.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Mr. Hrabowski,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman Elliott.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. You got 2 years to get your permits. We have 2 more items. I have a feeling that number 10 is going to be a lot shorter than number 9. Is it okay if we switch the order of those 2? Is that okay, or no? Any objection?
I'm here for the duration. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, trying to get people from getting mad at us unnecessarily. So if we could take number 10 next, please. It's 937 Aussie Court. It's a new subdivision off of 19 near, say, the northeast corner of the city. We could take this one, please. Okay, Patricia.
Okay. This is a request to reduce the required rear yard setback by 2 feet to accommodate a screen room. And this is at the townhomes at Brittany Park Subdivision. Address is 937 Aussie Court. And this is in a planned development district. The request is to construct a screen room with a solid roof over an existing 7.2 foot by 15.8 foot wood deck. This development has a required 10-foot rear setback and a 10-foot easement in the back. But just to summarize, this was something that was originally approved as a townhome condominium that went to fee simple townhomes. And these were built with the decks on the back, all at 7.2 feet wide, as far as we can tell. The applicant is requesting to basically enclose that deck with a screen room. There have been other screen rooms approved in this development, specifically on this building. Two that I know of were approved on this building, one with a variance and one went through approval without a variance by mistake by past city staff. This was properly noticed and there were no responses received to the notices. And I'll go ahead and summarize the analysis with the findings of fact. The decks in this development were installed by the original builder, and the special circumstances with this development were not self-created or resulting from the action by the applicant. The requested variance is the minimum necessary to screen in the deck as constructed, and the variance will not confer a special privilege on these owners over any owners that possess the same dimensional restrictions. I will say that the reason for that is there's a couple of things. There is common area behind this deck, so it doesn't border another living unit or something like that. There are other screen rooms that were approved, and this is something where it could be an appropriate, really development-wide variance if the developers wanted to propose that, or if the association wanted to propose that. It may be a candidate for that type of thing. So these are just coming in one by one at this point. Granting the variance will not adversely impact surrounding properties and is in keeping with the existing neighborhood development pattern and the character of this development. Staff recommends approval of the variance for relief from the minimum rear yard setback requirements. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Is the applicant here? Okay, you want to come forward, sir, and explain what's going on?
Hello, my name is Craig Boyle, owner of Boyle's Aluminum and Screening. We were contracted by Mrs. Teresa Ignacio to build a covered screened patio. Basically, going to the property, we noticed that there were multiple other, screen rooms with covered composite panel roofs located there. We did kind of look into the permitting on it also and had seen that they were permitted structures, so therefore we didn't see any problem with proceeding to actually build it. As we got further down in the process, I think we submitted the application October, went through the line, it got rejected, and then it came back, and then come to find out that the setbacks are what they are, which leaves us 2 feet short in order to actually build on the existing deck. So we don't look to modify the deck in any way. We just want to build the screen room on that deck.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody in the audience wish to speak on this item? Any questions from the board, comments?
I have a question for staff. Over the years, we're told not to consider what's around the neighborhood or in other homes adjacent to it. You just made the comment that there are other ones that have already a screen enclosure. Is there a shift in policy from the city?
Is that, I'm sorry, what was that last part?
Is there a shift of policy from the city? We can consider other structures in order to approve the particular one that we're looking at?
I'm going to interrupt here. That's staff's analysis. As we've talked about before, that is staff's analysis. I have told you, and I will tell you again today, that what's happened at other properties, it doesn't make a difference. So just because it's in staff's analysis doesn't make it relevant for you to consider. And I would advise that you not consider that.
So in other words, what the staff analyzes, we pick and choose what we want?
No, and we've had this discussion before. Staff's analysis is staff's analysis. You can choose to accept it, you can choose to reject it, you can ask questions about it.
Thank you.
The criteria are the criteria.
Okay. I want to thank you for playing by the rules. A lot of people would just go ahead and do it and worry about the permitting later. So I'd like to give you a discount on your application if you can do that for zero.
Appreciate that, yeah.
I'm off for good behavior in jail, I thought. Maybe.
Yeah.
I also believe in equal protection, and if other people have been approved by the city without permits, then these people should get one with one. So anyway, we have a motion, or not yet?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Roll call, please. Ms. Kim?
Ms. Turner?
Approve.
Mr. Eisner?
Approve.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
Mr. Abelski?
Yes.
Mr. Elliott?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, now we're back to item number 9. Application 18-173. Variance request to reduce the required front yard setback. This is in Ganoy Park, again, east of Highland Avenue. And let's hear from our staff, please.
Okay, this is an application to authorize a reduction of the required front yard setback to build a single-family residence with detached garage. This is on Lot 9 and half of Lot 8 of Block 2 in Ganoy Park Subdivision. The applicant's requesting a variance to reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 15 feet to allow the construction of a single-family residence with a detached garage. The plan shows a 2,014 square foot single-family residence proposed and a detached garage, the size of which is not given. And that detached garage is proposed for the front of the house. The lot conforms to the minimum district standards for lot size, width, and depth, but it is not a standard rectangle, so it's kind of oddly shifted, so it's angled relative to the street. So this does present a design challenge for siting a usually rectangular single-family home on it. There were a couple items in looking at this. As I said, the detached garage size is not given. There is a restriction on a size for a detached garage, so that could not be evaluated, and we were not able to, I guess, have sufficient time to go back and forth with the applicant to try to figure that out. So I was not convinced with the proposed design. I could not determine that this was the minimum variance needed for an appropriate and reasonable project on this property. The home, as far as it goes, is in character with the rest of the neighborhood and the other homes being built by the applicant overall. And of course, the use is obviously in conformance and in character with the rest of the neighborhood. It's a single family with a garage. But basically, to summarize staff analysis with the findings, the lot does meet the minimum district standards, but is configured at an angle relative to the street. So it is an unusual shape. The conditions and special circumstances associated with the variance have not been self-created as far as the lot goes. The strict application of the dimensional standards may limit additional development, but the applicant has not demonstrated that the requested variance is the minimum needed to overcome really any impediment to providing for reasonable use of the property. Granting of the variance would not confer a special privilege with respect to the use of the property of a single-family residence, but most of the residences are really overall meet that front setback, so there is a consideration here of a special privilege for this lot without further evidence in my mind that this was the minimum needed to be able to build this project. Allowing a reduction of the front yard setback has not been shown to be consistent with that neighborhood development pattern. So at this point, staff is recommending denial of the variance for relief from the minimum front yard setback. Are there any questions? And this was properly noticed. There were no responses.
Yeah, let's start with the board questions of staff. Is the applicant here? Mr. Cooper, please explain your application.
We have copies of them.
My name's Torrey Cooper, 1407 Cromwell Drive. If we look at the application at face, I need to explain some extenuating circumstances that occurred. This is an application for an attached garage, not detached garage. If you look at the application itself and the drawings, there are two drawings in there. One shows a attached garage, one shows a detached garage. We modified it to an attached garage.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes, sir.
Based upon that, does the staff have any comments? Or am I just being too presumptuous? Or does that change anything as far as your recommendation?
No, staff considers this a detached garage. I believe Mr. Cooper is referring to the fact that it's attached on one corner, but that doesn't meet the definition of attached.
Could you clarify, or could somebody clarify what the definition of attached is?
An accessory structure which shares a structural wall is attached or is separated by a distance of less than 2 feet. It shall be deemed part of the primary structure. This is not sharing a structural wall, and it's further away than 2 feet, as far as we can tell.
Is that true, sir?
Pardon, sir?
It's separated by more than 2 feet.
Actually, it's attached in one location. It originally, if you look at the two drawings that were attached to the application, it was recommended that we attach it versus detach it.
But if I could interrupt you, the definition that was quoted to us says it has to have a common wall, I think is what you said.
Or
Is it
Less
and
than
or
2
or?
feet.
or
less-
less than
oh.
2 feet, so he meets
Right.
the definition.
So what do you think about that?
Is that correct?
I'm not aware of the definition, actually, since our...
Let's hear
Yeah, I'm asking the city, is that correct? Because if it in fact is in contact with the other building, then that's less than 2 feet.
Yes, a structure which shares a structural wall is attached or is separated by a distance of less than 2 feet. So what the definition is telling you is, when do I consider a piece part of the primary structure? I consider it part of the primary structure when it's separated by less than 2 feet, or if it's attached with a structural wall, shares a structural wall.
So does it share a
And
structural
Mr.
wall?
Cooper did come in
One at a
and,
time, please.
and revise the drawing, but it doesn't meet the definition.
May I
Mr. Cooper,
address
please
the-
continue, yeah.
Yes. May I address the applicant's intention, right? The intention was to, because that site itself is so complicated to put a building on, is we originally submitted the detached drawing, as you can see out front here, and then we attached the garage. We could actually attach it 3 feet closer to the building, right, which would be the maximum density that you could actually squeeze the house together, right, which would not require the sidewalk between them, which we're totally flexible with that, but we tried to comply with what the city requested by saying detached or attached. That wasn't our intention, right? It was to get into that small space, the building pad itself. The issue with the lot itself, as staff has agreed, it's not perpendicular to the street. It's not parallel with the street, the lot itself, so it's actually skews on a tremendous angle. And if you look at the actual property lines itself, you'll find out that on one side, for the front, it's 81 foot, the north's 101 feet, the south's 125 feet, and the back's 70 feet. So there's nothing normal about the lot itself trying to put a rectangular building inside of a lot that's so skewed. Also, that lot was a combination of a non-conforming lot, so we actually increased the size of it, trying to make it somewhat buildable. And the only location possible to put a garage, because of the topography of the lot, which is the other unique part, the top of the lot is 24 feet, the back of the lot is 10 feet. So it's 14-foot drop in the lot itself, from the street elevation to the rear. So it's very hard to put anything behind the lot. And that's why the house itself is actually a rather small building pad, because if the lot was square, the house would have no issue at all. It would fit in there very fine. So we've actually gone to 2 different architectural firms, came up with 8 different site plans, and none of them can we get to work inside because the lot is actually skewed. So our request was, with the final one, was to actually have the garage attached or detached, which is not, that's, either way is fine with us. So it would take out that little walkway between them and actually push the lot back, the actual garage against the house. I think the important thing that should be noted is that on Sunshine Drive, where that lot is located, is if you'll see the lot to the north, which is Sharon Berry's, which is under construction, that is a 15-foot setback from the center, from the property line. This is, well, same property line of sight that we're requesting, so we're not jagging the house out of the line of sight on Sunshine Drive. And still allows almost 30 feet from the house itself, even proposed here, to actually do the pavement.
So I'm asking the city, would he have to file a different application to, or would that just be an amendment on his end to move the garage that extra couple of feet closer to the house? So that would be attached.
He could amend the application to move the garage closer or attach it to the house. We would need to know what the setback request is. That would solve two problems.
Would the city change to approve recommendation, or would you still be in favor of denial if he did that?
I think that we would look favorably on the application, and we would also be able to resolve the issue of the size of the garage, because...
And you're in favor of doing that?
Yes, sir. Well, very tough lot to put a house on.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
According to the drawing and what we have here,
yes,
and with the garage closer to Sunset Drive, is the reason for it being so close because of the topography?
Yes, sir. Topography and actually being able to fit within the building pad space itself. Since on a normal lot, which would be if it was perpendicular to the road itself, you'd have right angles. Since the lot jogs off considerably like that you don't have a right angle to actually to put the garage in.
Okay. Another question. I was out there and I saw a house being built across the street.
Yes, sir.
And it looked pretty close to the right-of-way line.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna wait for Patricia to finish. Would you know the front set? My question, there's a house being built across the street and it looked pretty close to the right-of-way line. And I just wondered what that setback was across the street.
Why are we considering?
But she's busy. Okay. Just an academic question. Patricia, do you know anything about the house across the street?
It doesn't matter with the house across the street.
Well, it's nice to know. For me, if it was 15 feet from the right-of-way line, and this... Anyway, Mr. Burris.
Yes, I have a question. From the rendering that you have,
yes, sir.
okay, the detached garage shown here is approximately, would you say, about 10 to 12 feet away from the house?
On that rendering,
Yes.
that would appear correct, yes.
Okay. The angle of that building, it's in a way where it contradicts the site plan that you have over there.
That is an architectural rendering elevation. That's not the actual rendering of the drawing. No, sir.
Okay, so what is the problem getting that building on the rendering closer to the house?
That building, the garage on the rendering,
Yes.
if you actually look at the site plan to the side there, that is actually the same.
No, it's not.
That's what he's saying.
You can use this microphone if you'd like.
Yes, that's what I'm questioning.
He's saying that this shape,
This garage,
Okay.
this garage is actually to scale the same as the garage on the rendering, but it was put. So what we can do is push that into this space here, which is a walkway, into that slot, which would be 3 feet closer. Which would actually just give you the same elevation, and it would take this dotted line, it would push this designated line back here 3 feet further closer to the house. So the house would actually be totally attached.
So if I can make it plain, it kisses the house right in a corner right there. Is that the idea?
Yes, sir.
No, the whole thing.
He's going to move the whole thing. He's suggesting he will move all the way up into the house.
Slide it.
Okay.
That's his-
Then if he
that's
does
his
that,
amendment.
that's fine.
It would
Exactly.
truly be attached
That's what I
then.
said. You'll have to amend it to make that happen.
And then that would reduce your request that you're asking for within the application for encroachment into the front yard setback.
It looks like it would make it about an 18-foot
Then do it.
setback.
Different application in the variance. He can amend it to less encroachment.
Okay.
All right, if we could summarize then, the applicant has amended the application to slide this garage further to the,
Back,
which direction is that, west?
towards the house.
Yeah, I know, but which direction? I don't see
East.
an arrow.
East.
And does the staff have any objection to the variance request with that amendment?
No.
What would be the feet then? Because right now you're asking for a 15-foot variance, so you said that's 3 feet.
Correct.
So you're talking a 12-foot variance.
18.
No, I think it goes the opposite direction. We would be asking for.
Yeah, sorry, math.
7 foot, yes.
Yes, 7-foot variance.
Yeah, 10, yes.
So the new setback would be 18 feet from the front rather than 15.
Just in that one corner,
Yes.
From the front yard setback.
northwest corner. Okay, so,
I had a quick question, and pardon me if it's in here someplace because there's a lot of piece of paper, but I think staff mentioned that there was never or perhaps I'm wrong, the garage size wasn't determined at the time of the application?
I think that was a scrivener's error because it's actually on the site plan, both of them, and it's 487 or 512 feet is the garage size, which is a standard 2-car garage.
That's kind of where I was going. It's a standard 2-car garage?
Yes, sir.
But on the plan, it looked like there was actually an extra bump out of the garage.
It's a decorative tool shop bump of 4 feet or something, yes, sir.
So it's not a standard 2-car garage. It's a 2-car garage with a decorative bump out that actually.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And also now I'm thinking with moving that garage up the 3 feet to attach it to the home, are you still going to be able to have it as a side load, or are you going to have to switch it to be a front load because of, see how the house bumps out there in the dining room, that corner?
We're going to try to do the side load, but we're probably going to have to do the front load because of actually switching it closer, yes.
So then what happens to the decorative bump out?
The decorative guest quarters? Oh, you mean the garage
Bump out,
itself?
no,
If you change it to a front load, that kind of supersedes having that bump out, right?
Yes, sir.
I kind of I think it's attractive, but
I do
not here
too.
to-
Which
I'm not here to debate that.
What are we discussing now? I'm starting to get
all right, what
lost
I
here.
gather is there's been an amendment to the application, and the staff has entered a no objection to the application as amended. So, that being the case, are we ready for a motion?
I think we should probably ask for members of the public.
Yeah, okay. Anybody here again to discuss this item? Okay, thank you. All right. Ready for a motion?
Motion to approve as amended.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
And for point of clarification, the amendment that the motion is to approve is to have the garage bump to attach. Therefore, it's a 7-foot variance. Correct?
Yeah, but it's 18 back.
18 back,
Correct.
which equals the 7-foot
18-foot
variance.
setback instead of 20-foot.
Regardless of what it is.
Well, I think it's a good idea myself. I can't imagine having your garage out, let's say it's raining, or you're worried about security and you gotta go outside to get into your garage or into your house. Not a good idea, but that's not my call. So, any discussion again? None? Ready for a motion? Ready for a roll call, please?
Ms. Turner,
Approve as amended?
Mr. Eisner,
Approve.
Mr. Burris,
Approve as amended.
Mr. Rabowski,
Yes.
Chairman Elliott.
Yes. Okay. Still have one person in the audience patiently waiting, so
As always.
I guess you need a ride home, maybe. All right, next is our minutes of November 25th. Any discussion?
28th?
28th. It says 25th on the agenda. Discussion on the minutes? Ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second it.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we're going back to number 3. Need a nomination for a chairman and a vice chairman.
I nominate Herb Elliott for chair.
Okay, I'm gonna, Mr. Elliott cannot conduct the
vote?
the nomination, so
All
are there
right.
any nominations for chair?
Yep. Herb Elliott.
Is there a second?
I
Yes,
second it.
Herb Elliott.
There's a second. Are there any other nominations?
Interference in this election. I don't know what's going on.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, thank you for your confidence. I appreciate it.
Any nominations for vice chair?
Chris Rabowski.
Any second?
I second it.
Any additional nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Mr. Eisner.
Mr. Eisner, a second on that one?
Second.
Oh, there's a second. Uh-oh. Now we've got a contested vice chair seat. Any other nominations for
Bill's got to
vice
go
chair? Hearing none. All in favor of Mr. Hrabowski for vice chair, if you'll please raise your hand.
Aye.
1, 2, 3. We have
go along
3
with it.
in favor of Mr. Hrabowski. If we have any votes for Mr. Eisner by show of hands.
Hey.
1, 2, 3. You can't vote twice, Mr. Burris.
We have
Do I even get to vote as an alternate on that?
No.
No.
I didn't think so.
So we have 2 to 3. So we have a re-election of Mr. Hrabowski. We another 1 year.
I say we fight it out.
4 months ago.
Do a manual recount. I know those numbers are pretty staggering, but.
All right,
All
there's
right,
no
moving on.
recalls here, so that's it.
All right,
Election is
moving
closed.
on.
That was
It's official.
hotly contested campaign,
All
gentlemen.
right, number 9, staff comments.
No staff comments. We have a new alternate. I didn't know if you were going to
All right,
announce that.
Miss Rich, would you introduce yourself and give us a 25-word? Oh, I'm sorry, give us a nice rundown of your background.
Joanne Rich. I live 1005 Lake Avoca Place in the Point Alexis community. My parents retired to Tarpon Springs about 30 years ago, and now they're in their late 80s, so I moved full-time to partly care for them. But I've been here 1.5 years, and I'm an employee at the Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County as the faith-based community coordinator for the county. And so some days I'm in St. Pete, some days I'm in Tarpon, but I have a wonderful privilege of working with the county in that way. So it's great. I'm a graduate of the Citizens Academy, and it was through that experience that I put my name in the hat to serve in some way. So thank you.
Well, welcome to our board.
Welcome.
Thank
Do you attend the Peace for Tarpon meetings? There's one this Friday.
Yes,
Okay.
sir, I do.
Great.
Well, we have peaceful meetings. Thank you very much for offering your services to our city and to this board. Look forward to having you giving us your opinions. All right then, board comments. I just signed 3 orders tonight, and we're going to get those emailed to the board for your review, as discussed from before. They're pretty non-controversial, I think. Is it okay to ask what's happened to prior applications? Where are we?
It depends on what the application is. If it has to do with a sidewalk waiver,
No. No, really.
No, due to pending litigation, no.
Oh, okay.
But like Wawa, has it been over 2 years?
They pulled out.
Pulled out.
The lawyer decided not to build in that area. For a while.
Any other old
She doesn't make the decision.
variances that
Katie Cole does not make the
just wonder if they gathered cobwebs and just died on the vine?
Oh, that's right, the one on, in that trapezoid shape, the guy that came back for a 2-year
extension.
extension.
The one on the golf?
Yeah, it's been more than 2 years.
There was
Guess he
one
just
by
didn't-
Sunset Beach. Does anybody know?
No,
Guess
Heather's
he
gone.
just,
Okay.
Before my time.
Is that the one where he had to have a pole moved?
It was gonna build up because the lot is so small, and all the neighbors complained that they wouldn't be able to see the sunset.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
How about the county in Howard Park? What's going on with the swimming pool for the
You haven't been
fish?
here for 2 years? Oh, so maybe he can still do it.
It's the Clearwater Aquarium.
The nursery.
It's been more than, no, it has been 2 years.
No, I haven't been on the board.
Yeah, they, I believe they are either pulled permits or in the process of, I know I can't.
I went by there the other day, and it's definitely platted and staked, but they had asked for the variance on landscaping because there was so much vegetation you couldn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I've already heard complaints.
Oh,
about
The
it.
fish?
No,
From the fish.
the fish are very happy. It's a lovely hospital for
No,
them.
about
Fish
being-
would
being able
want
to
to
see
see
it.
the vegetation, I think. I don't know.
People actually complain they can see it. Isn't that bizarre? I heard that from a commissioner.
Neighbors can
Yeah.
see it?
Yeah.
The neighbors complained to the
it's
commissioner. I
not
spoke to
quite
him.
as remote as it was
Represented.
represented, I would say. And I'm still totally behind it. I want to say it's Wales.
I don't think we're putting whales in that, but that would be awesome.
No, there's some pilot whales and smaller.
Like
whales.
like little baby tiny ones.
There's a whole bunch of, I'm not talking humpback. or sperm
The
whales.
kayak route?
It's on the
The
way
tarpon
out of the
humpback.
park. If you're coming back from the beach and you kind of hang that first left, it's right. It really is right. I thought
Okay.
it was going to be way
I
back
did
in the
too.
woods.
That's what I thought.
All right. Anything else then?
I know.
Meeting's adjourned at 9:03. Thank you very much.
Good time.
One thing where